Hi, I'm Brian. I'd like to introduce everybody to our BGR Load 1 Load Raider. This is a kind of a new unit that's becoming more popular in dirt late model racing. It was developed by some asphalt teams, and they have further innovated on it on down the line, and I think we've taken it a step further. Not only have we taken it a step further as far as portability goes, but the functionability I think we've done a really good job on as well. This unit here uses the same load cell system that is found in many shock dynos, like the Rorigs or any of the shock dynos that are out there on the market. It's a very accurate scale, and it measures in pounds or kilograms, however you want to set it up. This particular one here, we got it calibrated to 3,000 pounds. I don't think that we'll ever go over 3,000 pounds of load rate at any time. It has all the basic features of all the other ones, with the exception of a couple. It's actuator driven. Instead of needing air over hydraulic to compress the spring, this one actually uses an electric actuator. You don't need to even plug this into a wall. Right now this is not even plugged in. It's running on its own self-contained power source, which is a 12-volt battery in the bottom. On this unit here, we've added a charging station. So the battery charger charges up to 50 amps. It's got your power indicator here, so you always know the charge of the battery. Disconnect. We added a light to this here so you can see the scale if you were at the racetrack and it was dark. This unit is really meant to be used as a tool for teams at the racetrack. How one of these units works and how to benefit you is, many times you're in the shop, you scale the car, and you're scaling the car with 6, 8, 10 different sets of springs, and those springs are all dedicated to one wheel on the car. And it seems like you get into those moments where you get to the racetrack and you want to put a spring on one of the corners that you don't necessarily have calibrated for that corner yet. This right here eliminates the need to even ever scale all of those springs on the car. And it works on very simple principles. The car needs so much weight to hold it at various ride heights depending on any condition. When you scale the car and you scale it at ride height with a certain amount of wedge on it, the pickup points between this end and this end are what they are, and the weight at that point is what it is. So for this particular shock here, the ride height it was sitting at was 18¼ inches. So what we would do to utilize the full potential of this is to take this shock off the car after we know what the distance is, put it on the machine, bring it to 18¼ inches. So here's 18½. We'll go to 18¼ It's got a small little pointer right here at the down just a little bit, right here on the tab behind that follows the scale. At 18¼ inches on this, it's calibrated to the distances here, obviously. We have 316 pounds. What that means is that this particular car at ride height, which is 18¼ here to here, takes 300, it's reading 315. You got a little, the thing about gas pressured shocks, another thing you have to remember is, and it's very sensitive, if I even touch it, it changes a little bit. The gas pressure in the shock and many of the valvings add additional load to this entire assembly. So we may have a 300-pound spring on here right now, and it may have rated at 300 pounds, but once we have the shock on there, there's going to be a variable difference in that depending on the gas pressure in the shocks. So that's what makes this very important. But back to the whole principle. That means at this distance it takes that much weight to hold the car at ride height. If I want to change this spring to a different spring rate, say instead of the 300 I want to put a 450 on it, I can take my 450 shock and spring, put it on here, go to 18¼ inches, set my nut to where I'm at 314½, 315 pounds, put this on the car, and absolutely the only thing we would have changed is the spring rate itself. The wedge would still be in the car exactly the same. The ride height will still be exactly the same. It eliminates all of those variables of taking an assembly off, turning the nuts, making sure you're counting all of the turns and putting it all back in, let alone all the work that goes into doing all those springs. And now, if we needed that 325-pound spring that we may not have scaled on the car, as long as we have that spring with us, or we can go to the parts truck at the racetrack, get that spring, put it on our system, and then put it on the car, and then we have what we want for that evening. Something different about this unit here that sets it apart from some of the other units. Not only can you do compression rate, but you can also do the pull down rate. So if I want to put my 6-coil on here and measure my 6-coil heights, or if I'm using inside bump stops, you know, on the inside of the shock body, or limiting straps, or whatever I'm doing to limit the travel on the left side of the car, I can also measure that and get that critical information to keep in my record, so I can always go back to that. Everything works really smooth. Like I said, it's actuator driven. You need no air. You don't even need to plug this in. And right here we've came to the bottom of our shock. So see, we're pulling it off of the seat now, and you can watch the shock, the compression, the rebound that's in this shock come out of it. I mean, it's pretty substantial. Just a small instant amount, we got 60 pounds on there. So, but if I wanted to do the pull down there, so I say that if this shock had a bump stop in it or a compression release at the bottom, I could go down and pull it, and it'll measure that too. So, makes it real quick and easy. All of these will come, whether you buy it in the kit form or if you buy it assembled, will come with the spring unloader. So, very simple unit. Put your shock assembly in the jack, tip it up. This one here, we have the end. You can turn it to get the height, change the height if you need to. We're going to bring this up a little bit. What makes this part important is that with this, you never have to turn the nut. You can keep the nut where it's located at and just take the spring off that way. Because many times you can't, it's virtually impossible, especially on the right fronts, because the right fronts are compressed so much with these low spring rates. There's just not enough room to get that cup off. You cannot squeeze it down there. But with the unloader, we stick it up in between our teeth, jack it up, and it makes it real easy to take this spring right off of the shock body without ever touching the adjustment nut. You could have somebody doing this while you're working on the car. If you want to make a change, they can come in just a matter of minutes. They can swap this out for a different spring. So, which is what we'll do right now. We've taken the 300-pound spring off, and we're going to swap it for this 225-pound spring. So we're going to stick that back on, our new spring that we want, and we can't squeeze that on there, so I'm going to put this in the unloader. And I may be making this look hard, but it's really not. It's just, and you can see it's drawn at an angle, so it draws the spring into those hooks. And there's hooks on the end of this too, and that helps to keep it from flying off in your face if you were to get yourself in trouble, you know. That's the last thing you want to do, is have somebody get hurt by the spring while they're at the racetrack. So there is our new spring. Now the whole time you can have somebody else doing something on the race car, changing the tires, working on that, instead of being down there counting the turns, you know, all the different stuff that goes into it. We put our spring assembly back on. And now we're going to run this back up to 18 inches. 18 and a quarter, I'm sorry. And right now we're at 230 pounds. And I'm doing this just as if I was at the racetrack right now. There's plenty of room in here for you to work. If somebody accidentally gets up under the car and turns the nut the wrong direction, you don't have to wonder, did you get it right? You can always go back to the machine and get it exactly right where you want it. So I'm going to take the pressure off of this. We're not quite to 315 yet. I'm not even going to count the turns because that doesn't even matter anymore. So I'm going to run it back up to 18 1/4. 286. So if we wanted to know how much weight one turn put on this, you could always, turn it one turn and then run it back up to that distance and get that measurement as well. We're back to 18 1/4. 347, so we're a little bit too far. I'll take a little bit off of there. $320. And there's 314, 313 and a half. We're within a couple pounds. This shock and spring assembly is ready to go back on the car. Now, if you wanted to be even more critical than that, you can always go further. But that's as far as I think we need to go. And if I put this coilover assembly back on my race car, I guarantee you it'll sit at the ride height and it will scale exactly the way it was scaled beforehand. These units sell from other companies for more than $5,000, and when I seen that, I was just blown away and come to the realization this is why more teams don't have one of these units. And they sometimes, even if you have multiple spring setups, it's virtually impossible to do any of that with scales because you need to know where those spring stops are. You have to have one of these units if you're going to do multiple spring setups, whether it's the dual rate springs on the right front or however you're running them. This machine here we're going to sell in kit form with the actuator, the load cell, the computer, ready to assemble for about $1,100. So out the door, $1,100. You can put it together in a couple of hours. Weld it, paint it, and use it. If you want us to assemble it, we got variable pricing for that, depending on how you want it. Like I said, this unit here has a battery charger, a 12-volt charging system, so that you can take this as a mobile unit anywhere, never have to plug it in. It will require 12 volts to operate it. Most of you guys either have a 12-volt winch or a battery charger in your trailer. You can use that to run the actuator. The scale itself is self-contained. It does come with an AC power adapter if you need to plug it in somewhere. This is definitely a piece of equipment that people are going to need, and you're going to need to get it at a reasonable rate. If you just want the load cell itself, we will sell individual parts. You can call us or email us here at BGR and we'll let you know the pricing on that. I hope this was very informative for everybody, and if you have any questions in the future or need anything at all, that's what we're here for, is to learn how to help racers get to the racetrack and do it without breaking the bank. Thanks.